Okay, everyone, welcome to the DSP Career Ladders. And the purpose or culture for the DSP Career Ladders is to create a more equitable system to have different pay rates upon hire to account for things like years of experience, degrees, certifications like AMAP, SCIP, and CPR. It's really why we are doing this. It's to create a more equitable system for continued growth and interest in working with PCCS long-term, and to enhance the responsibilities of DSPs so that it's more comprehensive. So we were looking at the different models that we have, what we've had in place and what we're looking to accomplish. Currently, we have a one-size-fits-all approach where all DSPs are making $15 an hour, regardless of how much education, experience, or training, or what shift they work. What we'd like to move forward to is a person-centered approach where we recognize each DSP for the value that they bring to PCCS. Dedicated employees are rewarded and retained, and hopefully we will be able to attract top talent. Also, if anyone has any questions while the slides are going, you don't have to wait till the end. Feel free to interrupt me. I do have everyone's pictures minimized, so just unmute yourself and jump in at any time. So what is the cost of not being person-centered? Well, PCCS has eliminated some administrative positions during the pandemic, so we could provide an additional $2 in hazard pay to our DSPs. We were successfully able to do this, but over the year, it costed us $170,000. Our current turnover rate is 68%, which is also costing us approximately $165,436 each year. Due to our turnover rate and our lack of staffing, overtime has cost us approximately $149,762 a year. When we add all of this cost up, we're looking at approximately $485,198, which we could round to $500,000. What we gain by being person-centered. In a Society for Human Resources Management survey, it was found that retention or turnover was the top workforce management challenge, cited by 47% of HR professionals, followed by recruitment at 36%. Most respondents agreed recognition can help create a positive workplace culture and employee experience. And more than one half said their program positively affects retention, about 68%, and recruitment, 56%. We have all of these studies and we can send them out to you at the end of this training. If we reallocate these funds, approximately $485,000, to invest in retention efforts like higher pay, training, professional development, and career opportunities, we will significantly reduce the cost by approximately 87%. What will it cost to provide differentials as recognition? In year one, the estimated cost per employee to participate in the training program is about $630 per employee. The estimated number of traditional employees participating, we estimate will be approximately 100, totaling $63,000, which is only 13% of $485,198. Some other ways we can expect costs to be reduced include, but are not limited to, higher job satisfaction, decreased turnover costs, decreased overtime costs, decrease in burnout due to too much overtime for coverage, longevity of employees because they now have a pathway to enhance their income within their role. I do want to note that this is for PCCS's traditional direct support providers. So those are DSPs, life skill coaches, employment DSPs, etc. This is not for self-directed employees through our FI program. We will roll this out in cohorts and have 2 cohorts each year beginning in December during DSP evaluation season. We will have a new hire cohort and an existing employee cohort each year. So we are doing our best just to sort of circle back to align it with evaluation season. What that means for everyone on this call is as coordinators or supervisors, these are conversations you should have with your staff when you're doing the evaluations to encourage all traditional employees to participate in this program. DSPs will have the opportunity to engage in a year-long training. DSPs will be responsible for completing all training assigned. All training is paid and needs to be monitored by the employee supervisor along with HR. What that means is that the supervisors should also be taking these courses so they understand what the DSPs are learning. Training time should not replace direct service time. Once training is complete, employees will be eligible to apply for more responsibility within their role. It will only cost $630 per employee for them to have the PCCS developed core competencies. Each department and role has a set amount of opportunities available for additional responsibilities and structure around it. The amount of opportunities were developed based on program needs and size. DSPs will become officially eligible after the completion of the core competency training program. So this is just an example of the pay scale restructure for DSPs. So some of the differentials include overnights, weekends, as well as evenings. Overnight is not $1, it will be 50 cents, so will weekends and so will evenings. There's education differentials. Associate's degree is an additional 25, bachelor's is 50, and a master's degree would be $1. Experience and PCCS seniority follow the same timeframes of 1 to 4 years, 5 to 9 years, or 10 plus years. And they receive 25 cents, 50 cents, or $1 more respectively. Drivers will receive differentials as well. If they're driving a PCCS vehicle or one of the family's vehicle, they'll get an additional 10 cents added to their base pay. If it's their personal car, they'll get an additional 20 cents added. For certifications like AMAP, they'll get an additional 50 cents, CPR 10 cents, and SCIP 20 cents. That's in addition to the sign-on bonuses of $100 each for each certification that they have, AMAP specifically, CPR and SCIP. We're also looking at holiday pay. So time and a half will be given to any traditional employee that works a holiday, even if it doesn't run into overtime. Additionally, the staff can take another day off. Some important points is that DSPs will be eligible for either experience or PCCS seniority, whichever is the highest rate, but they won't be able to get both. DSPs will also be eligible for the rate connected to their highest level of education, not all three. So for example, if somebody has a bachelor's and a master's degree, they would get the $1, not $1.50. The training rate would still be $15 an hour, and DSPs will be reevaluated for what pay scale they should be given according to this layout. It's also important to note that the $2 hazard pay will be taken away in 50-cent increments if DSPs are not completing their assigned trainings. So each quarter, there's a number of trainings that DSPs should be participating in, which I believe shows up later on in the slides. And if they're not taking these courses, at the end of the quarter, they'll lose 50 cents. So for example, if a DSP is making $17 an hour right now and doesn't participate in the first quarter trainings, at the end of that quarter, they'll go down to $16.50. If at the end of quarter two, they still don't participate in the training, they go down to 16, and so forth and so on. However, if this DSP is making 17 an hour, and we've given them, let's say, an additional 50 cents because they have a bachelor's degree after assessing them, now the DSP is making $17.50. But the DSP decides not to participate in any of the trainings. That would bring them down to 17 an hour. If anyone has any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. So some DSPs may decide not to complete the trainings because they're comfortable where they are, and that's okay, but they will end up losing the hazard pay. And they won't be eligible for any additional responsibilities to continue growing within the program. So here's an overview. The categories of opportunities are split up into the following types. So we have courses. These are the courses that are live on Relias. Things like using service plans, abuse prevention, common health issues for people with IDD. And then there are internal and external certifications. things like skip, AMAP, CPR, driving. There's experience. So for anyone who has experience working in the field of supporting people with IDD, upon applying to PCCS, having 2 years working at another agency, and then also seniority, that's years working within PCCS, and then responsibility. This is job growth. This is where DSPs are allowed to take on increased responsibilities so that the administrative need is decreased. So this might look like writing staff action plans or completing assessments or training and mentoring staff. Degrees, formal college or trade school degrees, such as a master's, bachelor's, or certificates, and then NADSP certifications will be discussed in the future. So this is what the core competency training looks like for Q1 and Q2. I'm just going to let that sit here for a while so you guys can look at some of the courses. And this would be for Q3 and Q4. And again, if you have any questions.
So they have to complete all these to maintain their pay rate every
Correct.
quarter?
Correct.
Okay.
So if
And then-
in the first, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And then, okay, what was I gonna say? I'm sorry, hold on 1 second.
No worries, I cut you off, sorry.
So does this, like, let's say this one takes 11.25 hours to complete and they're working 40 hours a week. Are they clocking in for this, or is this something that they're doing on their own time?
No, they are clocking in for it because all trainings are paid.
Okay, so
And
we have to
the
make sure that they're not going over their hours, basically.
So yes and no. This is in addition to their hours. So they shouldn't be doing the trainings while they're working. So we understand that it may lead into overtime. From
Okay.
time to time, it's sort of one of the benefits of joining this program. You have all these additional benefits that you can reap. Of course, as supervisors, we want to be mindful to manage cost all the time, but it's not an absolute, they should never go into overtime doing this. We don't want to take that sort of hard stance with it, if that makes sense.
And so like Mike, for your programs or even in the IRA, like the ideal version for someone that works 40 hours a week, when or if there's downtime or extra
That's
staffing,
what I was gonna say, yeah.
you know, let's say people wind up going home at 2:30 and your staff have an hour and a half. They
Let them work
if
on
they're
that.
involved in this, they should be filling their time with that.
Yeah.
Same as, you know, in the IRA, let's just say, for example, Natalia goes home and now you have, you know, the 2 overnights still, and maybe they don't necessarily need to be doing the chair swapping all night and that kind of thing because Natalia is not home and they're enrolled in this program. They should take that time as an opportunity to, you know, do this. Because then you guys will be the ones really, the only ones really that would be able to monitor, okay, you had the time to do this week, but you allowed it to go into overtime even though it didn't need to, kind of
Yeah.
thing. But for some employees, like Christina said, that just they do work 40 hours direct service, like especially our HRS or even the ComHab and Lou, you know, those staff, it might be really difficult because when they are doing 40 hours, it's full direct service each and every time. So we sort of know that it's going to have to happen in order to get them through the program.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. All right. And so after each quarter, we will be assessing where everyone sort of lies. So we'll provide regular updates as well. Quarterly DSP committee requirement. What we're also asking after each quarter is for DSPs to participate in committee meetings. The purpose is to facilitate discussion and engage the DSPs in debriefing on what they've learned, how they will use the trainings they've participated in, and to just share their experiences overall. All supervisors need to be present to learn how to continue these conversations with those they supervise and on an ongoing basis. So responsibilities overview. PCCS leadership has developed a listing per program of additional responsibilities DSPs can take on to lighten the workflow of a supervisor. So we talked about job growth before, about expanding responsibilities. These responsibilities will continue to need to be supervised and or delegated. Each program has different tasks and caps on how many eligible positions their own due to the nature of the program. So these numbers may continue to grow as the programs increase, and they may also decrease. Some responsibilities are eligible for an hourly increase, and some will be eligible for stipends. Before DSPs can be given the responsibility, there will be an additional step between the supervisor and the DSP to assess their competency and skill level of doing the task itself. This will be documented in the Reliance tracker, skills tracker. And so this is what you see on the right. On the right, you see what the skills tracker looks like. So if you can see, it says met or non-met. In this particular instance, we put the person met the requirement. I'm so sorry, you guys. I just need to mute for a second. My daughter's trapped outside and can't get in the house.
That's okay. I could pick it up, Christina. So in this example, we used a staff action plan. And so when we get into the responsibilities, you guys will see, we tried to work with each of your program managers and directors to really detail things out by program and not necessarily just a DSP role in general. So let's say, for example, there's obviously more opportunity for DSPs to do staff action plan writing if they're in a ComHab staff role, because they're working typically one-on-one with a person, or even if not one-on-one, in a small group setting and there's only one or two staff. Whereas if we use the IRA for an example, if you have, say, 20 staff, you only have 6 staff action plans to write. You're only going to have 6 monthly summary notes to write. So there can only ever be so many opportunities dependent on the program and the needs of the program. But this one was just a very straightforward example to be able to use. And so what will happen in the system is that there are trainings in that training plan that are relative to each responsibility that a staff could get. And so after they complete that training, dependent on the task, they'll then need to be in observation. So if we use the staff action plan, a DSP will then need to be involved in staff action plans and observing them. And then you'll have to observe them doing one, and so on and so forth until they've mastered the skill and can then perform the task.
Thank you, Alexa.
Yeah, you got it. Mike, I saw you come on. Did you have a question? Oh, okay, perfect.
I'm okay. I was just thinking it's sort of like having an intern in a way.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just sort of mentoring them in ways to take on more responsibilities, like you'll see as we kind of talk about. And I don't want anyone to get worried about, oh God, DSPs are going to be taking on these responsibilities. We're talking about a year out from now. And this is the base list of things that we've really, really scaled down. You guys probably remember about 6 or 7 months ago, HR was asking, can you get, we know we have your job descriptions, but can you give me what is it that you do on a daily or weekly basis kind of thing? And that's where we developed this list from, is scaling down with the program managers and the directors, okay, it doesn't seem realistic that and I'm making this up, but it doesn't seem realistic that a DSP can do another DSP's evaluation, but what they could do is mentor them. And when a situation happens, they can process it with them, walk them through it. What could they have done differently, so on and so forth.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So do coordinators, are we under this, or is it something different for us, or how does that work?
The coordinators we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that before the end of today, Brianna, but that's a great question.
Okay, and so another thing to think about as well is that you're gonna have time in that first year with that staff to sort of have more at those quarterly DSP committee meetings. You have time to engage that staff a little bit more. and sort of piecemeal certain things to them and expose them to certain things. So as Alexis said, it's not like they're jumping right into these responsibilities. There's a year in between to sort of prep them for that. That's a good point, Alexa. Some of the additional responsibilities or opportunities specifically for IRA could look like an emergency preparedness support. So off shift, they would be eligible for a stipend. It would be hourly time plus the $100 stipend. This would be something that would occur in Q5, and it would be based on the need at the time. So if we look at the rest of the list, there's a number of different items on the list and a number of different examples. It tells you whether or not it's stipend or hourly. So a good hourly example would be shift documentation. So that would be reviewing vehicle logs, capture module, billing for each shift, and medication documentation. And they would get an additional 30 cents an hour, one per shift. There's space for one per shift. Any questions on this slide?
I do just want to mention too, for all the responsibilities that you'll see for all of the programs, these are just sort of like a snapshot, and you'll see when we get to the next steps towards the end of the presentation, one of the next steps is to meet together with the programs and really fine tune and like go through what exactly this will all play out to be in like a very functional and practical way. So this is sort of like the umbrella overview. And then like working at the details will happen over the next year while the DSPs are doing the training courses.
So another
question.
option, we got someone was going to speak.
Yeah. When you say 30 cents per shift, you mean like per day, an hour added on, or
Per
is it
hour. So it's if they're making 17 an hour, it's now 17.30.
just for that day that they're doing that stuff, or?
Well, the idea is that if they're taking, and Alexa, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if they're taking on these responsibilities, they would sort of own this responsibility and they would be
Okay.
making it. That would be their salary.
Yeah,
Or their
absolutely.
wage, rather.
And that's exactly why this will take a lot more development, because it'll change and shift, not necessarily change, but it'll shift the internal workings and structures of how the departments function.
Okay.
But the hope is to, as we continue to grow, alleviate some of the supervisor day-to-day responsibility of the physical doing and transitioning that over into supervising, so you can supervise more DSPs who are doing more in order to pay them more, if that makes sense.
So the only ones that I think would be sort of like they get it sometimes, but don't get it all the time, would be the actual, everything else we're talking about here. And I guess I could be a little bit more clear about the way it's communicated. Those are all wage increases that we're referring to here. The only one that's an actual differential would be the shift differential. So that's when somebody works evening time during certain hours. If they work during those hours, they would get those shift differentials. If they worked overnight, they would get that shift differential only for that shift. So they would have a different hourly rate when they worked overnight than when they worked in the daytime. That's the only time it would really fluctuate. That makes sense, Eugene? You still with me,
Muted.
Eugene?
You muted.
Oh, I think, Christina, were you talking to Mike?
Oh, Mike, I can't see the names. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Oh,
Are
Eugene
you
was
with me,
talking.
Mike?
Yes, I'm with you. So they get, if they work a night shift, they get night differential, basically, like when you're at that. Yeah.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. That makes
Sorry
sense.
about the name mistake. And then additional responsibilities for employment programs could look like member planning documents such as SAP meeting facilitations, SAP writing, or DDP2. That would be a stipend, $75 per meeting, $50 per plan writing, and $25 for DDP2. And this, of course, would be based on active enrollments. That's a stipend. Something that's hourly would be training mentor, working with DSPs and mentoring them both time limited and extended, use use observation tool that Jackie sent may include staff meeting, training facilitation, co-hosting parts of new hire training, or your specific department related to the DSP role. So that would be 75 cents added to the hourly rate. That would of course happen in Q5, and it would be 1 per 5 active full-time staff. I skipped one. HRS ComHab. These are the ones here, and I'm going a little slow just so you guys can read through and see the ones that stand out to you most. An example of a stipend could be quality assurance checks. So that's conducting apartment checks or spot checks. That would be a $50 stipend. And that's, I believe it says here, as needed or staffed 1,000 a month when admin not fully staffed. Not fully staffed. It says as needed, but capped at no more than 500 a month when admin is fully staffed, $1,000 a month when admin is not fully staffed. And again, the committee involvement is here, both internally and externally. Additional responsibilities, opportunities for ComHab and respite could look like case planning. So that's writing and maintaining staff action plans, planning, facilitating, writing meeting minutes and sending out plans, gathering and uploading documents from external or internal people, such as CM, families, doctors. That would add another $1 an hour to the employee's rate. And that would be per each DSP case based on enrollment. So again, we have the committee involvement both internally and externally. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. For existing employees, we will be revalidating all employee data to ensure we have each employee accounted for in the new pay scale. Employees who are past the probationary period will be enrolled into the year 1 training plan on Relias. Employees will keep their hazard pay during the year 1 training plan and will begin to have the hazard pay taken away at 50 cents at 50-cent increments, only if they do not complete their required quarterly trainings. So for example, if a DSP only completes 2 out of the 4 quarter trainings, they will keep $1 and lose $1. Employees who complete the year-long training program will be eligible to keep the hazard pay, which would become their new base rate. All DSPs will be required to attend an information session to have a full understanding of the career ladder opportunities that are available to them. So we have created a flyer that all of you should have by now. Hopefully you're sending it out to all of your staff so they can enroll in one of these trainings. For new employees, hazard pay will stop upon hire as of December 1st, and new employees will be hired using the new pay scale. New employees will be eligible to join the first year cohort this December, and any employees hired after November 2021 will be eligible for next year's. All new employees will be educated on the career ladders in new hire. For supervisors, further training will be available on how to use Relias once this is launched. There will likely need to be additional timesheet checks and Paycom as we begin to ensure the systems are functioning properly. So that's what we're working on now, making sure that the differentials show up correctly. And supervisors will need to be well-versed to answer employee questions and to engage the DSPs in this program. If you need cheat sheets or scripts or anything, or one-pagers, please reach out and we will provide them to you. Program leaders will need to work with HR in building a structure for supervising DSPs with additional responsibilities, and this will take place over the next year. All supervisors will be required to complete the Relias core competency trainings prior to DSPs being enrolled to ensure full understanding of the training your staff will be given. So this is very important. It's looking like we'll have to make sure that supervisors are enrolled by November 1st if we're looking to roll the program out in December. That way supervisors have at least a month to complete all of these trainings. All supervisors need to discuss the career ladder program with their direct support staff during evaluations for 2021 to ensure DSPs are fully aware and understand the program and opportunities available. So some of the risks could be lower starting wage, which could attract less employees. However, there is an opportunity to grow within PCCS and hopefully increase long-term salary for those who participate. Another risk is employees not completing training. They will lose their hourly rate. But on the flip side, DSPs will have increased knowledge to provide better services to people supported and have the opportunity to keep that money. Another risk could be that supervisors feel DSPs will make too close to their salaries. So I think this is the question that was asked. We will be working on addressing administrative salaries and benefits during the next year. We need to begin with our biggest wage gap, which is our DSPs. Though we understand how challenging this can be, we do hope that we can collectively agree that our DSPs have and are extremely underpaid, and we need to act now. So it's something that's in the works, and I say it on every training. Please send me any ideas after seeing what we've created here. If you have any ideas about how it would be equally as interesting or a good idea to add into an administrative career ladder, if you will, I'm open to any suggestions, so you can email them to me at any time. Agency, another reward would be that agency funds will be utilized in a more efficient way rather than paying out high turnover costs. Any questions on this slide?
I just want to build on Christina for another one of the benefits is that our hope in raising some of the ability of pay for a direct support professional is that you also get more professionalized people applying. So folks with that have gone to school maybe for social work, or that are going to school for like speech pathology, or want to be in this work, in this line of work, and continuing their career in this line of work, even if being a DSP might be a stepping stone to their future career. We're hoping that this will help weed out, or at least identify, who is here for now, so to speak, versus who's here for more long-term experience, and help navigate some of that as a supervisor and be able to get better quality staff as well.
So our next steps is to get feedback from everyone on this call, everyone who's attended a session, just to learn from and hear what ideas you think work well, what might work better, any ideas that maybe weren't included in here. One of the things that came up more recently was creating a differential for language. We were on several language meetings to talk about how we can make sure that everyone has access to information. So that's something we're looking to include in here as well. Then we're going to focus on system setup. So currently we're looking at Relias to see how we can make it all come together and make sure we have we're giving the correct access to managers, and setting up a monitoring plan to make sure that the program is successful. In Paycom, we've already begun setting up differential rules that will start in December. And then we're at a point where we're trying to figure out how it's going to work with Vero's timekeeping import. System building with leadership. So something we have to think through is when a DSP switches departments, or if a DSP is shared between departments, or they leave and come back, what are the policies? How are we managing that? So just coming up with clear policies around all of these potential changes. Then the training sessions are mandatory. So this is our second supervisor training. And then we're also going to start with the DSP trainings as well. And then just want to make sure that all employee information is updated and it's correct. So those that are already here are getting what is owed to them based upon this new scale. And then we're just going to begin programming and monitoring. And so I'm going to put this Jamboard link in the chat box. And I want you guys to save this in case you have any questions or ideas. Putting it on the Jamboard will help us troubleshoot a lot of these questions or ideas that you have, include the ideas that you have. Oh, Alexa beat me to it. Thanks, Alexa.
You're welcome.
Any questions, guys?
Even if not a question, just overall feedback in general.
Feedback would be extremely appreciated. Just want to know how we're doing. Is it overwhelming? Did we confuse you guys even more?
I took it in as an overview because there's a lot of details I couldn't retain, obviously. But
Fair enough.
the overview is good. My concern is obviously I don't want people jumping through hoops just to get the money and not do the tasks. So we got to collaborate with each other on like what shortcuts they're taking and making sure, whatever. With
Yes, for sure.
actually doing it.
That sort of like evaluation part is absolutely going to have to be a part of that. And that's a lot of like the systems building that's going to have to happen. Even say, for example, we're going to have a difference in rate and pay if people are certified in CPR. Well, if that certification drops and they don't attend their CPR class until they get recertified, they're going to lose that wage. You know what I mean? So there's going to have to be a lot of dialogue and cross-checking with one another, especially as we first get this up and running, because as with any new thing, there's always hiccups.
Fun times.
Yeah. Well, I also think this is going to change the culture of the job. And that's why it was.
That's exactly what
the
we're
first
hoping.
screen said culture, and that's why.
Yep.
And will the requirements change for IRA? Because I know the requirements, you have to you have to drive, you have to be AMAP certified, you have to be SCIP. So would that not be a thing?
No, I mean, I think that's a good question. I think as we start to get more into detail, so for the first year, I can definitely say definitively that it wouldn't necessarily change. I think once we start to dive further into that responsibilities area, and I'm just thinking out loud because this is what I would say at, the brainstorming meeting that we'll have, for example, with AMAP staff. I know from experience with supervising DSPs, just because you got that AMAP certification does not mean I would like you to be delivering the medication in the house that I'm overseeing. So, that'll definitely be part of that conversation. Like right now we have it where you have to be AMAP, you have to be SCIP, you have to be CPR. Maybe we adjust what that structure looks like. And we have an AMAP designated person per shift. And that's the person that gets paid to handle that. Or, you know what I mean? Like, and really set up, just like Eugene was saying, set up the culture differently and change the expectations, and so you could be sort of like an entry-level DSP. You can be a DSP with enhanced responsibilities. You can, you know what I mean? And really shifting just this blank slate of, any DSP can just go work anywhere. Everyone should be able to, perform the same way. Because the truth is we say that, but we know that's not true. So that's an excellent point, Brianna.
And then one more thing.
Yep.
So then, the coordinator's task change, because I've seen it says you'll get 30 cents to do vehicle logs, but we check vehicle logs. So would that be different for us or? They might.
Yep. And I, in full transparency, I don't know what the outfold of that will, turn out to look like, but we'll be meeting over the next year to figure out what would make sense. And we would love to do things like, obviously, you guys know, we also have like the HRS program that Marsha's right there. Maybe if we were able to, and I don't want to scare you, Evelise, I'm totally talking out loud. This is not a real thing, but an example of how some of those conversations could go is maybe if DSPs are able to take on some of those responsibilities, maybe then one of the coordinators can check in 2 hours a week with Marsha, and now you have more time for that, or you know what I mean? Just kind of shifting things in a little bit of a different way.
I'm going to be a pain in the butt here. What happens when this conversation comes up? Well, I'm not doing it because Bill makes 30 cents an hour to do that, and Bill's not here.
Oh yeah, that's definitely going to come up. Sorry, Eugene, you're on mute.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a chess game putting these things in to avoid that, but that's okay.
Yes, for sure. 100%. And that's really essentially too, there's different levels of, for lack of a better word, I'll say flexibilities as supervisors or coordinators that I don't know what the structure will exactly turn out to be, but let's just say, for an example, that you don't have that AMAP shift person, right, on Tuesday or whatever that's supposed to be there because they're on vacation. You can't get an AMAP person to fill in. Maybe for for that day, instead of the coordinator working, their usual schedule, they work remotely for X amount of hours, and then they go in and they're the med responsible person. And you know what I mean? Like I think it is going to be a chess game for sure.
Eugene, I just want to make sure I understand correctly. You said for the supervisor would be saying that, oh, someone else is getting paid 30 cents an hour.
No.
I'm not doing it, or another
DSPs.
DSP. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right, another
I was gonna
DSP
say a
who's- yeah.
supervisor has to do it regardless if their staff
Yeah.
isn't. How many times I do things for my staff,
Yeah,
that
no,
it's
other
not my
DSPs, like
responsibility.
if there's an AMAP designated DSP,
That makes sense.
saying like, oh, well, I don't go on medical appointments. That's not, something that my
understand.
job does, or
Yeah,
I
I
can
just don't
see
wanna
that. That's
turn-
a
I
good
like
pull.
this idea. I just don't want to turn it into a reason not to do things because, I'm not getting the pay, so I don't have to do those 8 things.
right. And the truth is though, Eugene, if I'm being totally blunt, those are the people we want to weed out.
I
Mhm.
agree.
That's why I like the idea. I'm not trying to fight you on it at all. I don't
Oh,
wanna
no,
sound
no,
like
no,
that.
I know, yeah. I think this is going to be a way to help separate
Mhm.
some of the groups of people that we have. You know what I mean? Like we have people that are lifers in the field. We have people that this is a stepping stone for them. We have all these different groups of people. And it also, just as a supervisor, allows you to shift your focus and your approach based on understanding also who your employees are and what their intentions are with the job even,
Absolutely.
And I do want to just chime in off what Alexa's saying, which is really true because I actually was just having this conversation recently because of the career ladders, and especially I think that this would be more implemented too, even within onboarding. Like if we're going in explaining this to people, so hopefully they understand from the start. That's what kind of we're trying to implement, where it's you're gonna you would have these incentives, but you are also accountable in the same sense, and that's how you kind of weed out the fact that professionals. And I actually went to a training that you sent over, Alexa, and it was for the turnover rate for DSPs, and it was very interesting to hear people not from New York and how much they pay and what they were suggesting. And I explained that what we were rolling out, and they were all for it because they don't really have as much learning management systems and stuff. So I feel like it's such a better opportunity, and it would be definitely on onboarding. We really want to implement it from the start, get used to Relias, get used to everything going on. So that's just something that would just be within your job title.
Yeah. And it really, if I'm being honest, this is like the long game. You know what I mean? I don't think we're going to see the effects that we hope to see in a year. I don't even think
No.
we're going to see them in 2 years, if I'm being totally honest. I think this is going to be 5-6 years down the line. Because even right now, let's say, for example, over the next, 2 weeks, I think we have 5 or 6 or maybe even more of these sessions set up for DSPs. We
Mhm.
have under 20 people, I think, registered.
Yeah.
So, and this isn't like the annual training plan that all DSPs are required, that all of us, as employees are required to do, that we have to chase and be in compliance for, and, so on and so forth. We want to make sure the DSPs are fully aware of the opportunity in front of them, but we're not chasing you for this. If you're coming to this information session, we want to make sure that we do our due diligence to invite people to these information sessions and that they understand them, because I know that we send out a lot of different things. But after that, it's on them to take ownership of this. So by the time these DSPs actually get to the responsibility part, the likelihood that you have people that go through all these processes that aren't really interested in being here and growing here and staying is probably pretty slim.
Right. You weed them out in the beginning, kind of.
Yeah, for
kinda
sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I imagine every quarter, if I'm being totally honest, that we'll have DSPs drop out and just be like, you know what? For 30 cents, this is not worth it for me.
Right.
Because they're not in it for the long game. You know what I mean? Is really kind of, I think, what it
Yeah.
is. And
you have to have someone who's going to try to find a career, not a job. I always learn that. So when someone's when someone wants to be in their career, and I think that DSPs
Yeah.
are very under acknowledged, and they're professionals and they need to, but they would hold themselves accountable, and you also need to get paid and recognized as a professional as well. So that's
Yeah.
what we're kind of trying to implement too. So I'm super
And this
excited.
is, it's going to be a culture shift for us agency wide, you know,
Right.
especially as we continue to go and move in this direction. I mean, PCCS is a big organization now, but we've only really been in operation like 12 years. So we're still in like our infancy in terms of having these really robust systems set up, and, you know, just even having career ladders. You know, it took us a really long time to be able to get here. We're hoping to do the administrative one next year, you know, and at some point in the future, let's just say, you know, Brianna gets promoted and now Brianna's the residential program manager. The new coordinator that comes in might actually wind up making less than some of our DSPs for quite some time. But they might have more experience, they might have been on the job longer. And that's not a current experience for PCCS staff at all. So like a lot of these culture things, but if, you know, if we're saying that the DSP role is the role that keeps us going and is the most important, we also have to kind of like put our money where our
Reward
mouth is,
it.
you know?
Mhm.
Yeah, 100%.
And so the goal is to be transparent though with the salaries, just to like
Mhm.
piggyback on what Alexis said. It's possible for an administrator to come in and make less than a DSP in the beginning if they don't have the same experience as the person in that role prior. But the person coming in wouldn't come in saying, wow, the DSPs make more money than me and I'm stuck here forever. The goal is for that administrator to also see a path for themselves. So if
Right.
administration is truly what they love doing, they can do it and see their growth within that role. On the same note, the same would apply for a DSP as well. I truly love supporting people. I truly love helping someone with their ADLs. I like the work that I do. I want to also be recognized and appreciated and rewarded for the efforts that I make. So just making those skills very transparent and appreciating everybody for the skills and value that they bring to the organization, regardless of title.
It's a great way to put it, Christina.
But then what if as a coordinator, you have more qualifications than DSP? Because I feel like as a coordinator, we're kind of like DSPs too, because we play like a big role as a DSP. Like we have the same job description, basically we just have things on the back end, like, you know, meetings and vehicle logs, approving time and things like that. But we're really still DSPs.
So there will be that career path. So we would still have it laid out where all of those functions would be recognized. So it's what we're saying is, let's say you have a DSP who comes in and the DSP has 4 years of experience. A coordinator who comes in and maybe only has 2 years of experience may not make as much as the DSP with the 4 years of experience. And that's because we're saying we appreciate the years of experience you have. On the same note, if the DSP's been with us for a long period of time and you have experience, it's possible that either the DSP could be making more, or it's possible that you guys could be even making the same amount of money, because we're considering all the factors that you bring to the table. We're not just saying the work you do is what we're measuring it by. We're saying if you come to the table and you went and you invested in your education, you got a bachelor's degree, we're going to recognize that whether you're a DSP, a coordinator, or whatever your role is. And if you didn't get a degree, we're not saying degrees are the only way the only thing we recognize. If you've been with us for a number of years, we appreciate that too.
Even in
so
like a lateral example for different positions. So let's say, for example, we have a lot of what we call coordinator positions, right? That might be residential coordinator, it might be program coordinator, it might be day hab coordinator. Now, let's just say right now, there's a coordinator salary range, regardless of what program you work in across all of our programs. What there isn't is something to acknowledge the differences in programs. So let's just use the IRA and traditional ComHab and respite for an example. You guys will have, I guess what we're referring to as like sort of like swing shifts, right? Where you're working nights and weekends. That would need to be, that will be appreciated in a different salary amount than our coordinators, that even though they have the same title, their role is not on call. It is not, it is just strictly 9 to 5. Right now, that doesn't exist. Do you know what I mean? And so that's what it's going to be looking like when we get to the administrative side of it. And so those are our two really big projects for this year, is finishing and rolling out the DSP career ladder ones, and then building by next evaluation season the ones for our administrative employees. Does that help?
Brianna, does it help? Not really. I can see it in your face. Keep
don't
them
know.
coming. That's what we're here for.
Like, I don't want to
For.
be that person, you know, but
No, be that person. Please be.
It's
I'm
great
asking
feedback.
you to be that person.
It's good feedback.
because I don't know, I just kind of feel like it's just kind of a little confusing. I don't know. I don't want to say the coordinators are being left out, but like I could just speak for myself, honestly. Like I just feel like I've been in the company for a long time. I've been a DSP, shift supervisor. Like I feel like coordinators are really like managers and DSP at the same time, because we're on call, you know. So I feel like it would be a little insulting that a DSP could just come in and make more than us, you know, because we're on call.
But you said something important. You said something very important. You said, I've been here a very long time. So when we get to that place, which we have to do everything piece by piece. Like we said, we decided to start with DSPs first. Right. So in the beginning, we appreciate your patience as I try to develop something that is fair and equitable. So I just want to start with that at first. We don't have it together. We're working on getting it together because we don't want to do a rush job that doesn't work, right? Mm-hmm. That being said, you said you've been with us for a long time. So those are things we would recognize. So you would also be getting some kind of perk or benefit for your seniority as well. Not right now, because right now we're doing DSPs. We have to put the program together. But the goal is to recognize that you've been here for a long period of time. Alexa also mentioned that, you know, if you're on call, those are things we're going to recognize as well. We would add that in to that benefit. So while the DSP has an opportunity to make more money doing other things, you're going to have opportunities to make more money as well for other things that you do specific to your role. So I think the best way to look at it is, instead of measuring yourself comparably, if that's even a word, like in comparison to others, it's really to evaluate yourself within your role and what you can do within it to take advantage of all the merit increases and differentials that we're going to be throwing at you. We just have to make it fit. Even when we were creating this program, we didn't come up with something that was just for DSPs, period. We said, okay, DSPs and HRS, their program runs a little differently, so we have to make it look a little different than what it is in IRA. And then IRA looks a little different than DAHAB, so there has to be different things. So we have to do the exact same thing when it comes to coordinators, because the reality, like you said, coordinators don't do what DSPs do alone. They do that and so much more. So we have to look at exactly what you do so we can create the right merit plan for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I just
asked the truth is, Brianna, yeah, the truth is, Brianna, our whole increase merit evaluation. I mean, Christina redid our evaluations a year or two ago, and they're much more tangible now than they had ever been before, but we're still in the process of building something that is fair and equitable, that doesn't leave the positions out. And that's what we've recognized through doing all of those different surveys that I hound everybody to take for the SWOT analysis and all those other things. That's how all of this started, was getting your guys' feedback and then saying, okay, so this is how people, you know, are viewing this, or this is how people are experiencing this. How can we get there? You know, and so because we're in such a crisis with DSPs, we started there, but this same process that we did for DSPs is what we're going to be doing for administrators too.
Just give me time, please. That's all I ask for. I want to make sure, the same way we put a lot of thought and effort into this and making sure that it made sense, that we were truly accounting for everything they did. I don't want to just say, hey, yeah, if you do this, then you get this and you get that. And then come to find out it's not fair and it's not equitable. And then you're looking at your other coordinators or other people in administrators. You're like, what kind of program did they put together? It doesn't make any sense at all. So give me some time, and give Alexa time, give us some time to put something together that's equitable. And Brianna, I think you're not that person. I think your feedback is very helpful.
Agreed.
And if you have any comments or ideas that you think would make it more equitable, please email me and say, hey, And especially after it rolls out, 'cause I think that's when all the feelings are going to happen, right? That's when you're going to start to see how other coordinators respond. What's the feedback? What's the feeling? I'm not going to hear that feedback. You will, I won't. It won't come to me unless somebody hand delivers it to me. Send me those messages, let me know, because then as we're creating it, we can keep all of those concerns in mind and build something that counteracts those concerns. I can only work with what I know though, so I need your support too.
And I also just want to thank you guys, because you guys have been the first group that we've had that has asked questions at all or given
Yes.
any feedback at all, which we greatly appreciate, because this did take, it took almost a year for us to try to build. So it's not I promise this is not something that just got like thrown together and, you know, this has been
You could tell.
Yeah, it's been a
Thank
long
you.
time coming. So we appreciate your guys' feedback and the questions that you're asking, the concerns that you have. They're all really good pieces for us to be able to take back with us, whether that be it for the DSP one and or the administrative one.
I have a question too. How what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? How is everybody going to know everybody else's extras, so to speak? I mean, is that, you know what I mean? Like as far as like say DSPs, is everybody going to know who's making the extra this for that and that for this, or is it going to be private, or is it, you know, like?
So yes and no. The answer to that is twofold, right? In a perfect world, my answer is no, right? Because it makes everything easy for us as administrators. That's the perfect answer. The reality is we can't sit there and monitor DSPs from communicating with each other and telling them what the other person makes. The best way I would handle it as a supervisor manager is to just reinforce the fact that they participated in the program. They're doing all of these things, and you can make it too if you choose to sign up for the programs, you know, to encourage them to join the trainings. And then also anyone could probably do the math, because we're going to be transparent with the scales. So while they may not know specifically, they can assume, well, you know, I'm really close friends with Brianna, and I know Brianna didn't attend the semester, you know, last quarter. So I know she's not making 17 an hour now. I know she went down to 16.50, but she told me she has a bachelor's degree. So add on this percentage. Somebody wants to really be the super diligent calculator DSP.
Oh, and I'm sure you're going to have them. And I'm sure you're going to be like, wow, you couldn't count out the petty cash for me for the receipts, but this you have calculated to a T. You're definitely going to have those for sure.
Okay, so it sounds like it's actually complicated enough. So if you see somebody walk across the room and give meds, it's not like you can figure out their whole pay schedule.
No,
right.
No,
okay.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure. So with the responsibilities, if say there's a structure shift and you guys only have one AMAP person per shift, because they're going to know about our pay scale just from being a DSP here, and they would have that information. I mean, they can put two and two together. You know what I mean?
They know about AMAP, but they're not going to know the person's entire pay schedule.
Right.
No, because
so
they don't
many
know their
different places.
education,
Yes.
their seniority, and other stuff that plays into it. And if the person is, another thing is if the employee is shared between multiple departments, the person could have driving responsibilities in the other department, but not this department, right? And that could also be something that changes it. So there's a lot of different factors. So yeah, it's transparent to the individual, not necessarily transparent to others, but I'm sure people will make their own calculations.
It might actually
They can join the
add a little bit of
program.
grayness. I'm sorry?
I said, but they can join the program.
But what I'm thinking too, it might actually add a lot of, in a good way, it'll add a lot of gray areas to each position. You know what I mean? Like each position will not be defined. There's a spectrum in each position now.
Yes.
Right, exactly. Which is part of that whole idea about the culture shift.
Mm-hmm. Which means we will have to update the job descriptions. Thanks, Eugene, for pointing that out.
So excited.
I'm scared. No, I'm just kidding.
Me too. No, I'm not. I'm actually excited, but with Relias and stuff, I know it's gonna get confused. Like not confusing. I know that a lot of people, it is a little hard to report, and I'm going to be making like training manuals. I'm going to be doing all the things I love to do in life. But I do want to do a couple like trainings like with the supervisors to go through everything like later at a later time. So, but if you guys are in Lias and you feel like you can't access your staff, please let me know now if that just ever happens. If you feel like you don't have as much access because that's been happening, so I could nip that in the butt now. But yeah, I'm excited and scared, but I don't
I'm
know how to
excited for
feel.
like year 5 of this. I'm
Yeah,
not
I feel like
thrilled for
it
year
might be
1
good in
through
the first
5,
year.
if I'm being honest. But like, we'll do it. We'll get there.
Right.
But it's not going to be the best time for lives.
Because I'm not having a good time. No. No, I think it would be
I don't
fun.
know how I
think,
feel.
I don't know.
I have too
I
many
think that it
feelings.
would draw incentive. I think that I feel like I don't want to say like money makes the world go round, but it does. That incentive, um, when you have something to look forward to. Like we did that with a weight loss program at my old job, and you won X amount of money, whoever lost the most weight. Like I never ate so much broccoli in my life. And I was trying, but because you were like, well, I'm gonna get that money. I'm gonna get that $1,000, let's just say. Like it was that incentive to do it. So this will also better their career to make an incentive to do it and teach. Even if they don't stay here, it teaches them like work ethic and teaches you just career wise. So it would be, I'm trying to stay positive.
Since I was like a DSP just 10 minutes ago, I think it would be welcome as a DSP, especially coming from my point of view, where like, I'll work hard and then you look over and sometimes, I'm not going to mention any names, but there was a DSP worked here a year ago. I'm like, that person's a genius. They get the same money I do and they just don't do it,
Mhm.
and it was frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And this way you could just be, you don't have to acknowledge that anymore.
Yeah.
You'd be like, well, I could just leave that behind. They can sit there and make their 15.
Yeah, 100%. And I guarantee that even in the first rollout of this, you're gonna have some people that are like, well, with the new pay scale, I make 16.90. It's kind of almost 17. I was comfortable at 17. I'm not gonna go through all this. I want to just
Mhm.
show up, do the bare minimum, not get in trouble, and get out of here. You know what I mean? You
Mhm.
were still gonna have, but then, on the bright side, we're appreciating and being able to figure out financially how to appreciate those employees like yourself, Eugene, who are doing more and different. You know what I mean?
It allows people to be proud for doing their job rather than feeling like a fool.
Right. And there's also a lot of benefit for attracting people that are going to school for different behavioral health things.
Mm-hmm.
So building into a job role that you're now going to be doing assessments, that's an attractive thing for someone that's going for mental health counseling or social work or school counseling, whatever that might be. Whereas now a lot of the DSP role is not portrayed to be professional or clinical related, but it truly is. It's just the language we use, it's the pay scales, it's the advertisement of the role. If once we start changing all of that,
Mhm.
I honestly think we'll have a competitive edge on a lot of other places. And I do think that will elevate the expectation and the output of our DSPs. I hope anyway, but year 5, so like 2025.
Well, no one else
But
is
I
doing
agree
anything
with
like
you
this,
because
are
a lot
they?
of people with school, you can't get jobs or internships, and they want, you could have all these degrees, but they want all this experience. And at least, like, if maybe we would draw some type of attention to others that we would give them that experience and build on that. And I can easily say, as a college student, it's not easy to get
Yeah.
somewhere. So at least it opens doors for other people too.
Agreed. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for your feedback. Anybody have any other questions or feedback or anything you want to share? All right. Well, thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You
Thank you
have a
Have
good
a
day.
good
guys.
day, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.